fills a number of positions. Works out of the Attorney General's office. He is an attorney. Graduated from the University of Florida with his undergrad. Got his law degree from Mississippi College Law School. And we're very pleased to have Joe serve on our executive committee. Joe has served on the school board at the University Christian School here in Jackson for a number of years. I think also served as chairman maybe at some point. So he's been in the school environment and is familiar, very familiar with what teachers and schools face every day from the legal world. And we had a change on our program. Initially, I think you may have seen that we had Ann Sanders. Ann has been legal counsel for the MPSA for 19 years, works for the Brunini firm, and I got an email from one of her assistants on Tuesday morning of this week. It said Ann's husband had been critically ill and was in intensive care, and she would not be able to present today. So in a panic, I called Joe because I knew he was an attorney, and I said, Joe, is there any chance that you can give me some guidance on where I can go to find someone to help me out on a presentation regarding education and law? And he thought for a few minutes, and he said, well, you know, I think I might be able to help you with that because Friday is the only day this week that I could do it. So we're very fortunate to have Joe, and without any further introduction, I'm going to turn the program over to him. Thank you for being here. Let's welcome Joe Goff.
Can you hear me okay, everybody? Okay. Thank you, David. I'm Joe Goff, and I do appreciate the opportunity to be with you here today. It's kind of difficult for me because, again, trying to fill Ann's shoes. Ann's an expert in all of these areas that we're going to be discussing today. Trying to fill her shoes is impossible. And also, I understand you had Cliff Powers yesterday, and that's a tough act to follow, believe me. I know that. My kids go to University Christian School, and I'm on the board there. I'm board president, actually, at University Christian School. We're very fortunate to have Cliff and our other UCS people. Raise your hand. Yeah. Good to see all of you. I appreciate every one of you very much. Like I said, I'm board president at University Christian School. And Cliff is one of our many fine teachers that we have at the school, just like the other folks represented here today. Quick story on Cliff. We had a fundraiser last year. PTA and Booster Club joined together for a fundraiser in February for a adult prom. A prom for all the parents to go to. Decorated the gym. Everybody did an amazing job. It's a fundraiser, had a silent auction also, but it was a dance too. And like a lot of dances, you know, in the beginning, folks are a little bit reluctant to hit the dance floor, and you know, we didn't have any booze there or anything like that. So, you know, people a little bit reluctant to hit the dance floor to start with. Well, leave it to Cliff. And he was the first one to hit the dance floor. He took his jacket off, slammed it on the floor, and it was on at that point. And everybody had a great time. Like David said, I'm originally from South Florida, Fort Myers, Florida, and I graduated from the University of Florida, and I moved to Jackson 20 years ago to go to law school at Mississippi College. 2 weeks after I moved here, I went to a place called the Dock and met my wife. We tell our kids we met at church. But got married my first year of law school and stayed. It's 20 years now. And my wife and I, we live over in Flowood in Laurelwood subdivision, and have two boys, one 16 and one 14, an 11th grader this year, unbelievable, an 11th grader and a 9th grader. And it seems like just yesterday that they were in pre-K, and it's breaking my heart. I'm board president at University Christian School. We've been there now for 6 years. And first thing I want to tell you is how much, on behalf of the MPSA, on the committee, MPSA, and also just the teachers that are here from UCS, how much we appreciate what you do. Because what you do is a calling. It absolutely is a calling. It's something that you're committed to. And the impact that you're having on these kids at that young age, I can't tell you what an important supplement you are to parents that are out there trying to raise their kids and to do the right thing. And every day when you're there with these children, you're supplementing what these parents are trying to do at home. And oftentimes, I know, you're stepping in for the parents many, many times and doing things for these children that they're not getting at home. And I recognize that, and I appreciate that very, very much, and all that you do. What we're going to talk about today, though, legal issues in the classroom. But what we're primarily going to focus on is supervision issues, or lack thereof, acts or omissions on your part that can potentially, it's an unpleasant topic, but that can potentially lead to litigation. I did some research on this topic this week. It was not a topic that I was necessarily any kind of an expert on, not like Ian, but I did some research this week after I spoke to David on what the issues are in these circumstances and what can lead to litigation and what do the courts look for in determining whether or not somebody, a teacher, has adequately done their job, acted in a reasonable way to where they're insulated from litigation. I'm a defense lawyer. I represent the state of Mississippi primarily in employment litigation. When state employees file lawsuits, there are 33,000 state employees, so you can imagine we stay busy, okay? And when state employees file lawsuits over something relative to their job, maybe discrimination claim, that type of thing, I'm one of the attorneys that represents the state of Mississippi in those cases. And we do have an awful lot of litigation that we're involved in. And doing the research for this, one thing that shocked me is I learned that there are over 2,000 lawsuits filed a year that involve litigation for failure to properly supervise or some type of negligence that's alleged against a teacher that caused injury, some act or omission performed by a teacher that caused some type of injury to a child that led to a lawsuit against that teacher, against the school that teacher works for. And that shocked me that there was that much litigation, 2,000 lawsuits filed a year against teachers and schools for negligence. And it exposed me to, when doing research, to a whole area of the law that I didn't really know a lot about, but I've done some research on. We're going to talk about it today. And then also, any questions that you have, I'll do my best to try and answer those too. Let me tell you on the front end, I understand, having had two boys that were 3, 4, 5 years old, things can happen in a heartbeat. Things can happen before you even know it, okay? And the courts recognize that also. I can remember specifically my youngest, my wife and I at one point, first time we were ever going to use an actual babysitter, come to the house, somebody that wasn't related to us. Okay. And we were going to go out for the evening. We were really nervous, and my 3-year-old played in the living room. Before we even knew it, he had fell, he had tripped, and he hit his tooth on the fireplace. It was a horrible scene, you know, and blood everywhere. Well, obviously, we didn't go out that night. But that happened just like that. And we turned around for just a moment. And when you're watching other folks' children and teaching them and dealing with them all day long, things are going to happen. And I want you to understand that in all the research I've done on this topic, the courts recognize that you can be the most diligent teacher possible, but things are going to happen. And they happen fast. They can happen in a moment's notice. What standards, though? What do we need to look at as far as your actions or inactions to determine whether or not you have any exposure in a lawsuit, or whether or not your school has some exposure in a lawsuit? And I can tell you what the courts say, what the standard of care is in you performing your job. Let's talk about it, okay? There's a landmark case that involves St. Andrews Episcopal School, okay? This case went to the Mississippi Supreme Court about 10 years ago, and it involved supervision issues and whether or not the teacher for this 5-year-old provided adequate supervision on the playground. And it required the Mississippi Supreme Court. The case went all the way to the Supreme Court because the circuit judge originally threw the lawsuit out. Said, I don't find that there's any jury whatsoever that could or would ever make a finding for the plaintiff in this case. Threw the case out. But it went to the Mississippi Supreme Court on whether or not they appealed, and the issue was whether or not this teacher truly did provide adequate supervision there on the playground. And the Mississippi Supreme Court reversed the decision of the circuit judge to throw the case out and sent it back to circuit court saying, hey, the issues are such here that this warrants a trial. A jury needs to be able to hear the facts in this case and determine whether or not the school and this teacher was negligent in the supervision that they had in this case. So they sent the case back down to the circuit court. But in doing so, they stated what the law is as far as your acts or omissions. In the case, the facts were pretty brutal. It was a 5-year-old little girl that was allegedly, according to her and some of her witnesses,